on, guys? It's your boy John Liquidator coming back with another video, and this is a major story. So it looked like one former NBA referee has took the gloves off in this gambling scandal. He's exposing everybody. Guys, for this one here, we got to go all the way up to New York. Let's get it. Let's go. I am here to tell you, man, I knew this was going to happen. Oh, I knew this was going to happen. The whistleblowers is coming out of the woodwork. Now, we know Adam Silver was pressed hard this past weekend whenever he was out at games, making an appearance, and they wasted no time at all getting him pretty much putting the camera in his face, putting the mic in his face, and we finna dive into this thing right here. Let's head on over to X before we get into X. NBA referee that is spilling the beans, man. Hope you guys is having a great day today. Click the like button, share the video, because we're about to get it in today. This is going to be a long video here. Let's see here, man. Let's pull this up. Shout out to Brick Center over on Twitter. Let's listen.
And Terry Rozier was allowed to keep playing after an NBA investigation ruled that there was no NBA rules violated. What do you make of that decision now amid the FBI's allegations against him?
So what happened was, because bets were placed through legalized legal betting companies, they picked up aberrational behavior around a particular game in March of 23. And so that was brought to our attention by the regulators and the betting companies. We then looked into that situation and were very transparent about it. And while there was that aberrational betting, we frankly couldn't find anything. Terry at the time cooperated. He gave the league office his phone. He sat down for an interview. And we ultimately concluded that there was insufficient evidence, despite that aberrational behavior, to move forward. We then worked directly with the law enforcement, as they said at the press conference, that the league has been cooperating. And so that was obviously over 2 years ago. So the federal government has subpoena power, can threaten to put people in jail, can do all kinds of things that a league office can't do. So we've been working with them since then. And of course, what they announced yesterday was an indictment. So 2.5 years later, he still hasn't been convicted of anything, in fairness to Terry. Obviously, it doesn't look good, but he's now been put on administrative leave. And so, you know, there's a balance here of protecting people's rights and investigating. And as I said, we've been working with the government, and they have extraordinary powers that a league office doesn't have.
Now, that was Adam Silver, man, speaking to the media the other day. Now, I did a video a couple of days ago telling you guys about Sophie Cunningham, kind of breaking down this whole thing with Terry Rozier still receiving his $26 million salary. Now, Patrick Bet-David is the owner of Valuetainment and Podcast, and he made it his business to sit down and speak with the former betting referee in the NBA. Guys, listen to this.
When what's his name? Wemby has an incredible opening day, 40 points, 15 rebounds, 3 blocks. Good things are going on. And then next thing you know, boom, this is the news. Tim, great to have you on the podcast. Tim, can you hear us? I can't hear. I think you may be muted. There you go. Can you hear us?
We can hear him over there.
You're still...
No, I heard him over there.
No, that's Jake speaking.
Oh.
Tim, you may be still muted. Let's see, because that phone has got to, the red's got to remove from it.
How about now?
Oh, we hear you now.
There
we
he
go.
is.
So, Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific. Good morning, guys.
Fantastic.
Good morning.
Fantastic. Appreciate you for making the time. So, what do you think about what's going on here?
You know, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think when you talk about arrests being made by the FBI, I think the guys that are arrested are going to sit down and, you know, be scared to death with what they're facing, and they're going to start to cooperate, and they're going to tell the FBI everything they know, and this thing is going to spread like wildfire, and you're going to find out that this is a lot bigger than it is right now, and it's pretty big.
Tim, why do you think this is why 2 days before this announcement is made, or even 1 day before this announcement is made, Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, was on Pat McAfee? You think that was intentional?
Absolutely. I think he was trying to, get ahead of the fire a little bit and talk about that they need to get gambling under control. And I think that he's going to continue to try to figure out a way to put a lid on this, but it's going to be very difficult for him because I think this is.
So Adam Silver went on Pat McAfee, I'm guessing before all the accusations coming out. So he probably knew what was coming. Now that's crazy, man. Now let's finish listening to Tim.
It's widespread. I think it's going to be very damaging to the league. And, I just received a text message from one of the FBI agents that worked my case. And he basically said that they're not going to be able to cover this up like they cover up my case.
What do you mean by that? So what's the difference between this case and your case?
I think the David Stern was able to basically put a lid on it and paint me as one bad apple, the only guy involved, and nobody else did anything but me. And, we're going to move on from it. The FBI said that there was 6 or 7 other people that they wanted to indict, and this got shut down from the highest level. And then I find out, after I go to jail that, a guy by the name of Greg Andres, who was the head of the Eastern District of New York, took a job at a law firm and all of a sudden got all the outside legal counsel work for the NBA. So, it was a situation where David Stern really ran that whole investigation, and it got shut down by the, highest level people in regard to other people being involved.
Tim, so this is a bigger question for me. One of the stories was where is it Damon Jones, I think, was that gave and maybe I'm saying this incorrectly, but one of the players that was a teammate of LeBron gave word that he may not be playing the game to a guy on the outside. Do you think this is going to be tied to some NBA superstars as well? And Chauncey is a superstar. He's an NBA champion, finals MVP. He's absolutely a superstar, a head coach. But do you think some major superstar names could be tied or leaked to this case here?
Absolutely. I mean, when you talk about wire fraud, that's a law that, can be applied to many different things. And if you're just calling your buddy and telling them that somebody's not playing, even if it's a nonchalant comment, you're transferring that over state lines, that's wire fraud. And that's what I was charged with. So, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind some of these star players might have been, saying something to their buddies back home that they weren't playing, or one of the other guys weren't playing, or they weren't 100%. And bets were placed and money was made. I think that, sometimes people with power and money feel that the rules don't apply to them and they're not going to get caught. And you get a little bit cocky like I did and think that you're going to get away with something like this. And you just don't. You eventually always get caught.
What is the approach that the mob takes? A lot of times I've had a lot of the folks in the mob, on, and I've talked to Michael Francis on how close.
This is where things get interesting. Now I have not seen this, but I definitely want to know, what do the mafia plays in games from this? Like, how is they included in all of this? Let's listen, man.
Mostly they work with the NBA and college. And remember back in the days with, UNLV, and you would hear stories about some of the guys in Vegas. They would go to UNLV, and LJ and Stacey Ogman and Jerry Tarkanian. Of course, a lot of these were allegations. But what is the mob's approach when it comes down to NBA players? Why is it that a lot of the mob is tied and they target NBA? And by the way, this may open up to the NFL. Stephen A. Smith said that, they may be coming after the NFL. They may be coming after WNBA. What is the mob's approach when it comes down to working with the NBA?
Yeah, it's not just the NBA that it is. This is going to be widespread into other, professional sporting teams also. And, it's just a situation where, you're hanging out with the wrong people different times, and people are connected to the mob, and you get comfortable with somebody, you think they're your friend, and the next thing you know, they have something on you, or you're in an enormous amount of debt to them for some reason, and they have their claws into you, and they're going to put pressure on you to do things for them in regard to information, so that they can continue to make millions and millions of dollars. So in my situation, I remember I thought I was just going to give the guy the picks for 3 months and be done with it. And the FBI agent said they would have never, released you. You were their golden goose. And if you would have stopped giving them the picks that they wanted, they would end up killing you. So, the mob is the mob, and it's still prevalent in the United States of America. I know people think that it's not, but, it's still, working very, very hard.
Adam.
Bro, you're done already?
Yeah, bro.
How?
I hired most of the higher AI employees.
Wow.
Tim, how big is the Vegas effect here? Because if you scroll back X amount of years ago, there were no professional teams in Vegas. But the NBA Summer League is based in Vegas. We know that they have the Raiders now. I believe they have a WNBA team. I think LeBron is trying to bring an actual NBA team to Vegas. We know that the Mafia was located in Vegas. People think that the Mafia went away and they're just podcasters now. They're clearly out there. How big is the Vegas effect here, in your opinion?
I think that, you used to always be told you couldn't go to Vegas, stay away from Vegas. It was nothing but trouble. I think it's just a matter of there's a market out there and they want to improve the bottom line. So, they move into Vegas. You mentioned the Summer League for the NBA out in Vegas. They put it out in Vegas because they wanted the attraction for, some of the bigger players to go out there and watch. And, it exploded out there because, people went to see it and they loved it and loved going to Vegas. So it's all about the bottom dollar when it comes to, moving out to Vegas and expanding to different areas.
And you were found, I don't know exactly. I remember it was 2007, I believe, that you were alleged.
Yes, 2007, I was found guilty of gambling and wire fraud for passing inside information over state lines.
Okay, bingo. The inside information here. So whether it's in the stock market, whether it's in sports gambling, explain the difference maybe between what you were accused of or guilty of versus what actual player. You were a referee. These are players, coaches. Explain the difference in your opinion.
I think the difference between me and, say, Rozier is the fact that he went out onto the floor, basically pulled himself off the floor because he didn't want to go over a certain amount of points, knowing that there was bets that were going to hit in regard to the amount of points that he was supposed to score. My situation was I didn't go out and actually fix games like that. That's fixing of a game, which is a much higher penalty than just passing along information about injuries and different things that, you learned about the game that I was going to officiate that night. So I think he actually went out and fixed the outcome of a bet. So, I think he's probably in the most trouble of the three.
And for the record, how much do NBA referees make a year?
They do very well. A referee that goes all the way up to the NBA Finals is going to probably make a little bit over $500,000 a year.
Now, these are NBA referees, right? WNBA referees ain't making that. I just want to let y'all know.
A lower level guy is going to make somewhere around, 200, 225 a year.
Okay, but this is good money. But this isn't NBA, max salary, even minimum vet money. That's 5, 10, 20, 50 million. Terry Rozier, I think he's made over $100 million in his career. He plays for my Miami Heat right now. Why in the hell would someone who's made over $100 million waste their time and their reputation on a $100,000 bet? Explain to me the mind of a player. That's why I think there's something weird going on here. 160 million.
Great question. But what you have to realize is that, gambling addiction is just like drugs and alcohol. Damn. And, you get a high from that. I got a high from it. I enjoy doing it.
Now, guys, you guys can check out the full video on Valuetainment right there. Big boy YouTube channel. Sitting up there with over 7 million subscribers. Go show them some love. But I'm telling you right now, fingers are being pointed. Guys, get down in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts about this. Keep them bells on. I will be back with more. And until next time, dog, shake the haters off. I'm out of here, baby. Peace out.